life in the flesh, an expression that Paul uses, and we'll look at it in Galatians 2:20 at one point, okay? Life in the flesh, being a human. That's what life in the flesh is talking about. Though we live in the flesh, says Paul in 2 Corinthians 10:3 and following. We're humans, you understand? And we live in the midst of it. Life in the flesh, just being a human, is not sinful. That isn't sinful. What is sinful is what we who are humans, what we choose to do, what we embrace and justify, the evil that we do. Being humans, we take even lovely things and make a corrupt use of them. And our arguments, you see, are good in this world in which we live as humans. Whether one agrees with war or not, in the middle of gloom and the waste of war, a fellow said, every now and again we see gallantry and nobility, just a real flash of it. And we just can't help but think that is the best. Right in the middle of an evil, an awful evil. War is an awful evil. Well, wait a minute. When Hitler was, and here we go, and the argument is good, don't you see? Let him do what he wants to do. And the argument is good, but it's an argument made in a world. An argument made in a world. Are we doing okay there? An argument, if I didn't have her, we wouldn't get this done. In a world like ours now, where predators will come after us, the logical, looks like the moral answer to it is, kill the predator. Okay. See, and if you tell people otherwise than that, they have no time for you. And see, that makes sense also. The trouble with satanic this, that, and the other is its subtlety. It has great arguments. Paul will say in one text, we're not ignorant of the sly ways of Satan. Well, that's true, but only to a certain degree. I mean, we can see lots of his ways of working. Yeah, well, you know, he can make you watch pornography, and he can make you cheat on your taxes, and he can set up where adultery is going on, or homosexuality is the thing that you do, or whether you resent your parents and the addiction and all of that. All of that goes on. Yeah, and we see all of these things obvious enough. But it's when you come to things like patriotism, well, no, wait a minute. Now you're beginning to mess around. I want to look back again at Matthew 16. He's up among the mountains, up north of the Sea of Galilee. Matthew 16. He asks them, who do people say I am? And they give him a lot of nice responses. John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, the prophet who was to come and all of that. These are all big compliments. And Jesus having nothing of it. And he said, what do you think? And Peter, you remember, he says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, you got that right. You got that right. Peter knew this one standing in front of me, us, he is the Messiah, the anointed Son of God. Him, not her, not him, not them. That one right there, that there is the anointed Son of God, the Messiah. So he knew who he was. And yet, a couple of verses later, Jesus having said, I'll be given up to the scribes and the Pharisees and all the other big hitters, and they will kill me. And I'll rise again the third day. Well, Peter, he couldn't get that rise again the third day. All he heard was the killing. And he rebukes the Lord. Oh, this won't do. No, that won't do. What is his problem? His problem is that the Messiah, the one who was to come from God's promises, the one who was to come and deliver Israel. In fact, Jesus would even say that himself in Luke chapter 4, 18 and following, which we won't look at right now. But Jesus came to do good. But he never, ever promised life other than the ultimate eschatological life, immortality, total freedom, total adventure, totally God's companions forever in glory. That's all he ever offered. So Peter says, getting killed? The Messiah doesn't get killed. He wins. And Jesus says to him in 23, Matthew 16:23, get behind me. Get behind me. Satan. What? I mean, okay, so the guy didn't get the whole story. Why is it satanic? What is it that's really wrong with what Peter is saying? In 16:23, Christ will say, you delight in, your concern is about the things of humans, man, humankind, people who live in the flesh. That's where your interest lies. And you want a political, military leader to give us life in the flesh, freedom. The guy's patriotic. He doesn't want the Romans. The Romans are bad guys. And the scriptures say they're bad guys. Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, they're bad guys. And here they are occupying our country. And the Messiah, the one I think is the Messiah, he's telling me he's going to get killed? That's no Messiah. Messiahs don't get killed. The Messiah we're looking for, any surprise? The Messiah we're looking for is someone who will give us freedom and liberty, who will keep us from being killed, and when the Romans come and all of that kind of stuff in a battle. They've already had a number of goes at Rome. They never worked. They're going to have another in 126 when Bar Kokhba has another shot at them. And they're going to lose it again. He doesn't want talk about heaven. He doesn't know anything about that. I want life here and now. I want life in the flesh. That's what I want. And he will rebuke the Lord Jesus Christ on the basis of patriotism. John 11. John 11. There was a Sadducean fella, one of the high priests. His name was Caiaphas, or Caiaphas if you wish. His name is Caiaphas. He's a political leader. He's a Sadducee. They run the temple. Pharisees were the most popular group. They were mostly the teachers. Sadducees were the political big hitters. They didn't like one another, mark you. But still, the Sanhedrin was made up of, characteristically made up of Sadducean, political, religious guys. In John 11, listen to this, or maybe read it with me if you wish. 11:45. Many of the Jews who had come to Mary and had seen the things Jesus did believed on him, believed in him. I'm reading a New King James, all right? 46. But some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them the things Jesus did. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered a council and said, "What are we going to do? For this man works many signs." Well, no doubt at some point they called on Deuteronomy 13, 1-4. Guys can come along and work signs and they're evil. Pay no attention to them because they're calling you away to the gods. They got to use that against him. But that only works for a while, and it only works when you find out that this one is doing good all over. Can't stop him doing good. And Nicodemus is in chapter 3, verse 2, so impressed with what is going on in this person. He said, "We know you must be a prophet of God, a man of God. You must be one of God's servants, for nobody can do the things that you're doing." So here are these fellas. They're going out of their head now. They don't know what to do. What are we going to do? Why? If we let him alone, 11:48, if we let him alone like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and nation. So what have we got here? What are these fellows worried about? What is the drive? The real issue? Well, it's complex, of course. There's more involved, as the scriptures will tell us, than what they've just said. Pilate knew that for envy, The leaders delivered him up. They liked being the big hitters. And now, Jesus, everybody's talking about him. And they're, what, you know, if Jesus had a Bible study on a hill, the synagogues would be empty. I mean, what? What can you do about him? So there was envy and there were all kinds of things. But here it's worrying about the destruction of the nation. You know what'll happen? He will get the crowd so big and he will be acknowledged as the Messiah. And you know what Rome will do? Rome were required to do this by their own, for their own needs and for their own purposes. Anyone that turned out to be a big leader, claiming to be a leader and calling for their own peace and their own freedom and their own way of ruling and all of that, Rome stepped in, put a stop to it, and peculiarly, not exclusively, but peculiarly, would use trees, stakes, to crucify the leaders on. And they did it a number of times in Palestine. Varus did it, 2,000 insurrectionists up in Sepphoris and places like it, crucified them. And later, Titus, when his father Vespasian runs off to become the emperor, his son Titus takes over and finishes the job with the Jews that led up to AD 70. They crucified so many. They ran out of wood, trees, and anything else that they could hang them on. So they're worried about the Romans coming and, you know, beating them up, destroying the nation. Patriotism, putting the best face on it. They cared about the nation. Pharisees characteristically were bad eggs. That's why you read so much in there. But they weren't all bad eggs. Once the gospel was preached in Acts chapter 2 and following, you find out that priests and Levites and Pharisees too turn to God and believing in the Lord Jesus Christ. So it's true that the worst face of Pharisaism is, you hear a lot about it, and Jesus is raging about it in Matthew chapter 23. But here they want to know, what are we going to do? This is going to lead to war with Rome and the destruction, because we can't handle them, the destruction of our nation, and we will lose any influence we have in the nation. And then in verse 49, one of them, 11:49 of John, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all." John 11:49. The high priest that year, Caiaphas, said, "You don't know anything." 50. Nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish. That's 11:50. This is, and he was not a good man. He was not. When he had the opportunity, he had James, the brother of John, slain. He's a bad egg. He's a Sadducee. He doesn't believe in the resurrection. Life, this is all we get here. This is all we get here. So hold on to it. On one occasion, Sadducees came, had an argument with Jesus, not believing the resurrection, and Jesus said, "Oh, here, you don't know the scriptures and you don't know the power of God." They'd undermined, this is who led the nation and all of that kind of stuff. And that was the conviction of the Sadducees. He said, You don't consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, that the whole nation perish not? Well, how heartless of him. Heartless? Nations do it all the time. Britain, America, France, Germany, all the nations have done it and justified it. Britain, they come up with the German code. They unlocked it. And they now knew a lot of things that were going to be done before they ever happened. And on one occasion, the word was that they're coming to bomb Coventry. Well, then we should get everybody out of Coventry. Yes, but if they did that, the Germans would know. Oh, they knew we were coming. We have to change our code. And Britain wanted to hold on to the code so that they could do all kinds of things. But poor Coventry, you know. Well, could they not sneak some out? Well, you know, if you sneaked some out because they're going to be bombing, everybody would scatter. So Britain, Churchill, saw to it that Coventry was not warned and emptied. More than, look, I've never been in the military. I've just read stuff about the thing. But those in the military would know that there were suicide missions. And there were men and flyers and men and women involved in all kinds of things that they knew were not going to survive this. But it was to save the many. And so it was, such things are for the higher good. Patriotism in our world will involve that kind of thing. To save the nation, we're going to have to let Joe or Jennifer go to the wall. It's what you do in a world like this. Because in a world like this, Jesus will tell us, if you want to live life in the flesh, and you want to hold on to it and make it, you make arguments. You adopt policies that you think serve that end, and it doesn't make any difference what it is. Will you kill? Will you, on and on and on. You know what I mean. The word patriotic has the warmest sound because, well, why wouldn't it have? You don't love your nation? I belong to a nation. This is my country. What do you mean you own it? No, I'm a part of it. And it's better than all these others, though, you know, fascism, totalitarianism, Korean, this, that, and the other. This is a great country. Well, who's gonna down that? It's the love of a national structure. One American is not America. It's the whole deal where we stand together. One Irishman is not Ireland or Irish, not the Irish. They're one member of a deal. Same with everyone else. I was going to say you get suckered in. I don't mean you get suckered in. No, it's because we live in these places. We come to rejoice in the benefits and the people we know in it and all the fine things that we're able to get. Are these worth dying for? Yes. Yes. They're worth dying for. This fellow says they're worth killing for. Jesus said to Pilate, he said, "Are you a king then, finally?" Again he asked him, and Jesus said, "Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am." He said, "But my kingdom's not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my people would fight. My people would be carrying bazookas, flamethrowers, spears, shields, and all of that kind of stuff. They'd be riding in on tanks and all of that. They would be taking care of Rome. That's not how it is with my kingdom." This fella, Caiaphas, John 11, verse 50. "You don't consider it's expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish." Peter and Caiaphas wanted the same thing, but with marked differences, of course. But Peter wanted it bad enough where he rebukes the Lord Jesus Christ, who has worked all the miracles, who has done all the teaching, who has opened up all the scriptures, who just told him, "The Holy Father just made it clear to you who I am." So when Peter rebukes Jesus, what? God just told him, "Do you know who that is there?" And Peter says, "Who?" And the Holy Father says, "That is my anointed Son. That is the Messiah." Okay. Oh, I'm happy. And Jesus said, "That's correct." Then Jesus walks away, says what he says, and Peter comes and rebukes him. No way. Jesus didn't turn on his friend and follower for nothing. What is it about Peter's opposition to the dying of Jesus that Jesus calls satanic? When you talk that way, you are Satan making himself present. Why is it so massive? You know, in Matthew 23, Jesus calls them hypocrites, sons of serpents, this, that, and the other. He never, ever calls them Satan. He reserves that name for his leading man. Why? Why is that? What is it that Peter is wanting? He's wanting Rome dead. He's wanting political, social, economic freedom. He's wanting peace. Here, life worth living. That's what he wants. And he's willing to take issue with God and with Jesus Christ. He's willing to say physical dying is the worst of all possibilities. And Jesus tells him that is satanic. Now, Caiaphas, he has his own envy, he's got his own personal agendas and all of that, but he also has the big argument of patriotism. You know, if we get war with the Romans, we'll be wiped out. He's patriotic. He's in some ways a gangster, but he's patriotic. He wants what Peter wants. Jesus said, life, this biological phase of living, you think that to be the big thing? Let me tell you what I think of it. You want to be mine? You want to be mine? Take up your cross. Follow me to where I'm going. For I'm going to lay down my life in the flesh that I might take it again, resurrect it, glorified, all of that. You make it the number one issue. You want life such as it is throughout the world. You want that kept because that'll serve your particular purposes while the bulk of the world is being abused. Injustice everywhere, starvation, squalor, loneliness, freezing, all of that. You want to keep the world as it is so that it serves your purposes, while as the world stands right now is damning, multiplied millions in every generation. Let me tell you about life in the flesh. I came here to expose it for what it is. Time's up. God bless you. Thank you for being with us. If you don't like this, what I've been saying, not if you don't like it. If you don't think it's true, if you think I need to balance things, you must, please do. Write me, and you and I will have a nice, friendly, but straightforward conversation about this. What we're offering here, we think is true, and we think it's of fundamental importance to agree with Jesus Christ about life in the flesh. Thank you.